people, we get into a certain thing and we feel comfortable with it, and we have a tunnel vision when it comes to it. We won't see other things that's also coming into the fold and stuff. So it is about like that same Nation of Islam mentality back in the day. Muhammad put down certain rudimentary things. Now what that meant was, in scholarship, you have a person to put down rudimentary ideas, and it's up for the lay people and the futuristic brothers and sisters to come in, or the people in the future to come in and expound on that through scholarship. Give you an example. You got your Theosophical Society, started in 1888. Well, the first doctrines, the secret doctrines and Isis Unveiled by Blavatsky, they put out these books, these 2 volumes, Secret Doctrines and Isis Unveiled. I think she died in 1888 or something like that. And they went back in and got a lot of her lectures and pieced them together and put out these 2 mass volumes. From 1888 to 1998, you had a lot of these people coming in with Quest books, Lucius Press, and all these different things that came up out of the Theosophical Society, these several different research groups and book companies, and they had almost 100 years of people coming in and researching, you see, and expounding upon the rudimentary ideas that this woman and her group laid down in the late 1800s. Same thing with Honorable Elijah Muhammad. They put down these rudimentary information. It was left up for scholars to come in and expound upon that. And not just Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We talking about Noble Drew Ali. We talking about Marcus Garvey. We talking about all of them. But too often we have too much. The lay people have such a one-track mind, or this sectarian vision, until they couldn't see that the person who came after the particular visionary was doing the same thing. They were actually, expounding, that they were actually building upon the work. It was like, well, Elijah Muhammad didn't say that. Noble Drew Ali didn't say that. So this is a problem that we have, and now that's the same thing in the Afrocentric movement. I remember back in '94, there was some guy came to the Clark House, the brownstone or whatever they had in Harlem, and it was a guy, he was breaking this particular information down about something that was very advanced. And the people was around the table, they was looking at John Henry Clark, was like, is that right, John Henry Clark? I don't know, hell, ask him. But see, already we always, put this authority on people, you see what I'm saying? And everything is rudimentary. Hell, 20 years from now, or 10 or 5 years from now, my stuff will be rudimentary. You see what I'm saying? Because knowledge is infinite. And whenever you try to bottle it in, it always dies. That's how melanin is. It's the same thing. Whenever you try to trap it, it dies. That's the same thing with any type of conscious thought. Whenever you don't allow the freedom to expand, it dies. It's just like different music, which we're going to get into today, which is simple. It's interesting here. Because there will be a sound that come out to be a new genre, a new vogue in music, and then you might have 2 or 3 pioneers, and you might have 10 copycats.
There you go.
And about 2 or 3 years down the road, the energy, you see what I'm saying, has saturated it and dissipated it, and then it dies out. Then we have to do something else. You see? Well, it's that type of information. I think the scope of knowledge has to expand. And it has to be, and as a matter of fact, always look to the extreme. Now, let me give you an example. There was a guy at the Clark Atlanta University back in '98. We was up in Barnes & Noble bookstore talking, and this brother here, he been a part of the struggle now. He's not a dead person. This brother been a part of the person, but he was into that protest struggle. That's the model that he came from. That protest type of struggle on the front line. And it wasn't that the brother tried to shut things out. He was like, man, I really like what you're saying, but he said, but I'm having problems, trying to conceive what you're saying. You see, he said, I'm having a problem. I said, that's because you're locked into a certain mode. The blueprint or the archetype that you have chosen to view things, if anything comes outside of that blueprint, or outside of that periphery that you have set for yourself, that particular boundary, anything outside on the periphery, you can't conceptualize. I say, so do something. Reverse things. I say, for the next month, everything that sounds outlandish and bizarre, accept as truth. I said, even if you just reprogram the mind. I say, except that's true. And I say about a month later, you would have programmed the mind until you could actually go in and see that some things are very bizarre, but some things are actually creativity. You see, white boys had a conference back in 1986 called, it was a conference they coined Melanin as the phrase creative physics. It's a book called Mark Balfour's book, The Sign and the Serpent. Mark Balfour, B-A-L-F-O-R. Mark Balfour. There's a book called The Sign, well, what did I say the first one? The Sign of the Serpent. The Sign and the Serpent is the name of the book. Anyway, they coined this phrase. They took all this particular research dealing with the kundalini, the chakras, the pineal gland, and in so many words, they created it. They made a new name, creative physics, because basically they're talking about that's how melanin works, based on the creative aspect. The muse has to keep creating. Once the muse is boxed in and becomes stagnant, the muse just goes dormant. It never dies, but it goes dormant. It goes dormant. We get into some research on, we always try to find the origins of things as much as we can on scholarship. So we knew that music came from Hemmitt. We knew the Greek term, the muse. You see, we know, we know the classical accepted information based on the music, the muse, the classical scale, the whole 9 yards, based on your educational structure, as well as, when we say we're talking about Western educational structure, the collegiate aspect of what they say things is supposed to be valid. And in this particular information, what we're supposed to do is we have to always keep going and looking to try to find the fragments to trace it back to the original version. There's a book that came out in 1998. It's called Gnosticism and Hermeticism. State University Press, SUNY University. You know, they got whole research teams unlocking the occult, the metaphysics, and all types of information in this book called Hermeticism and Gnosticism. And in this particular book, they actually trace the origin of the music and the arts all the way back to Hemmitt in the book. But they call it the Hermetic schools. Well, if most people don't know what the Hermetic school is, Hermes is the Greek Tahuti. You see, the Greek Thoth, and the Thoth is the Greek Tahuti. And the Hermetic schools is basically, in so many words, a discipline that came out of the mystery system. Discipline that came out of the mystery system. That's the type of research, you see, that we always have to keep looking for to validate this type of information, because the simple fact, this is very key when we're dealing with what we're dealing with today as far as music. It's not just, this is not the type of information based on, well, music and melanin. No, we're not talking about the stuff that you've already gathered. What we're talking about here is a conspiracy to make sure, for the last 10 years, it started like the late 80s, after this conference that Mark Balfour talked about in 1986. And in this conference, they concluded that the Kundalini energy, which is the vital force at the base of your spine, was rising on the planet. They say there's a great serpent that is rising, as above, so below. They understood that there was this thing rising actually in the actual planet. Because so whatever we do, the planet is also a living specimen. You call it Gaia. You got different names for it. But as things that go on in the physical body, there's things that also go on within the planet. So they said that basically this serpentine energy was rising on the planet. This is in 1986. So around the same time that they had this conference, your boy Lenny Byers dies of crack cocaine, and that's the first time that we knew of it as a national phenomenon. You have to trace things back. Lenny Byers dies of crack cocaine. Tip O'Neill, 2 weeks later, comes in and gives this strenuous drug law about crack cocaine that hadn't even so-called hit the streets yet in the national phenomenon to say, hey, we have an epidemic. They already had legislation passed for it to lock people down. All the stuff you did, 3 strikes you out and all this type of stuff, they had stuff already passed for it 2 weeks after Lenny Byers died. They were just waiting for one fatal case to introduce this thing. You see, also introduce this information because also we find out that melatonin is in crack cocaine. Why else would it hit black people so hard? So I'll give you some information on this in a few minutes. Some things, always some things happen, and always some things happen spiritually. Now, going back, it's 1986. They automatically understood that one thing what they were going to have to do was they're going to have to shut down the actual music. They understood that there was going to be a link that what you hear, you see what I'm saying, would also be a form of the effect of the melanin that you were going to have to deal with in the future. Now, I wish Steve Freeman was here because it's a guy, he always quotes the guy, I just can't think of his name. Khan, the guy that wrote the book, he's a Sufi master, and he told the people that the new music, he said that the new religion will not be a religion at all, it would be a music. It would be something that would be heard from the spheres of the cosmos or the ethers that will open people up. I can't think of the guy named Khan is his last name. But I know it's a Sufi master. Anyway.
Hazrat Inayat Khan.
That's it. Hazrat Inayat Khan. That's it. He has a nice book out on, I think it's still in print on music. And he said that the new music, the new religion won't be a religion at all, it would be a music or a sound coming from the spheres. Something that can radiate cross cultural lines and cross ideology that will basically open people up. We know this happens. What's that?
It's weird. I got a videotape of Jimi Hendrix on the Dick Cavett show. And he said the same thing to Dick Cavett.
Isn't that interesting? Because that's a part of this particular aspect of the whole Hendrix thing that I'll get into in a few minutes, some other stuff that tapped into. So we got other instances as the Rosicrucians knew. It's also in the back of the book, that little book, little pink book, everybody that Vera Stanley Adler or something, Alder, Finding the Third Eye. And she puts one quote in there about how in the last days the pineal glands would open up. And she got that from a book called Rosicrucian Cosmos Conception, which is a very racist book. It's like from the late 1800s. But they also quoted this as well as Edgar Casey said that there would be a world avatar that would be incarnated on the planet called John Pineal. Well, if you trace the root of John that he's talking about, the John is supposedly the John the Baptist of the Bible, if you trace that back, John is Tahuti. You get John. See, you got these different avatars, these different spiritual principles that were later on historicalized. Sublime mythology makes grotesque history. Alvin Boyd Kuhn. So you have this sublime mythology that's historicalized. So you get John, you get Enoch, you get Elijah, you get Anush, you get Anup, you get Anubis, you get Tahuti. All of that is the same thing. There's a god called Hermanubis, which Tahuti is the opener of the way, Anubis is the opener of the way. You see, you get a god Hermanubis because Hermes is the Greek Tahuti. So he said John, which is Tahuti, which is the science of melanin, alchemy, pineal. So you're talking about the staff and the caduceus. John Pineal. Now this is interesting because the same energy that's supposed to be the Kundalini energy rising on the planet. It's interesting because there was a sister in one of the lectures down in Atlanta. She was a black filmmaker. And I think I haven't seen her since March or April because she's been making her film. She got enough people for extras just in my lecture. You know, everybody want to be in a movie. I announced her sister making a film and she need help. People start pulling out wigs and all kinds of shit. Anyway, the sister said that about a year ago, about 2 years ago, she was acting, I think probably around 99. They were looking on the eve of the millennium. And this girl was at the Carter Center. This is Jimmy Carter. You know, every president has their presidential library and center. And at the Carter Center in Atlanta, Jimmy Carter's son came out and said, we have been trying to stop the Kundalini or serpentine energy on the planet. And we have been successful. We have just a little bit to go. So that means in actuality, in order to stop the serpentine energy, he wasn't talking about the physical planet, that's impossible. They were talking about taking out melanated people. You see. And we know that Jimmy Carter has done more work outside of the presidency than he did all 4 years of the presidency. He did one more work in 1 year. You see what I'm saying? But I said, this is the actual Sun was talking about how they were stopping this Kundalini energy. So in so many words, they were saying in so many words, we have gone around the globe and we're taking indigenous people and we are murdering them and we have a control on this. Give you another example, which is a key. This summer, our brother and sister moved down from Tallahassee, Florida. They just finished FAMU. I think he finished in 2000. His girl finished in 2001. Her family's from Haiti. They moved to Atlanta. I think at the end of 2001, she went and got a job at a research company working in working on her major, working in a major. She went and got a job at some chemical research company. Whatever happened, there was some type of Arab that was in trouble based on some type of research he needed or whatever. I can't give you the logistics, but anyway, she helped this guy out and got him out of this trouble. The Arab said, well, since you got me out of this trouble, I'm going to get you, I'm going to say some things to you to help you. Apparently after 9/11, unlike us, they know that they were under attack. So what these Arabs have done is become and got research and intelligentsia groups to study what is going to be the next trait or the next type of conspiracy that's going to go off against them. So they got people, just like us, we got people working in every damn department in America. You see, and that's how we get a lot of our ideas and stuff. When people come back and say, you know, it's like one sister from Lilly Pharmaceutical that worked on the Melatonin program. And a brother that worked on the Melatonin program and talked about this particular sister, and all of a sudden the sister got sick in the late 80s, late 90s. You see what I'm saying? But knowing too much. Anyway, the Arabs are doing the same thing. They got intelligentsia groups that's undercover, trying to figure out what's the next move with the government, since their face is the one on this little particular terrorism type thing. We know that it's going to come back to us. You see what I'm saying? When they traced that boy from the Taliban back to Malcolm X, the guy that got caught, the white boy? When they traced it back to Malcolm X and said that's where he got his inspiration from, you best believe, I said, I knew it was coming. They're going to trace this thing right to us. You see? So anyway, they got this intelligentsia group, and so they're studying all this particular information, and they have this next wave of where they researched and found out where this stuff was coming. Anyway, the guy told the sister, say, well, you help me, I'm going to help you. Do not drink Coca-cola after August 26th. Now, I was right on it because in Atlanta, in 1999, they had 12 packs of the regular Kroger. You have the supermarket and you have the generic brand of the supermarket. So they first tested it out. They got Kroger's down there. So they had the generic brand was 12 packs, 99 cents. And black people had 2 shopping carts full. Stop piling on damn soda. All right, so they tested it out. This year they came up with the brand label. Coca-cola, 12 packs, 99 cents. Hell, that cost you damn near $1 to get a can of soda out of a machine. How the hell are you going to get 12 more? Even if it's 50 cents, my goodness. You see, 12 packs, 99 cents. They did it in June. Black people bought these things up. Then in July, they took it off, took it back to $2. Black people, was real sad, like, man, I missed out on that. So then in August, it came out again with the 12 pack for 99 cents. And so that made a greater incentive, and they bought these things up. Now it's interesting because one of the brothers doing the research said, well, people who are experts, they're going to tell if that Coke, if it's slightly off, they're going to tell. So here comes my mother, damn near Coke drinker for 40-something years. She was like, something wrong with the Coca-Cola. I said, well, you should know. You should know. This has been your blood. Something wrong with the Coca-Cola. Mother in South Carolina, you know what you do. She was like, something wrong with the Coke. Now, mind you, this is a woman that has a keen sense of smell. She could smell somebody outside this building. So the marijuana thing and all that kind of stuff, I couldn't get into that in high school because I know down the street. What's that smell? You know? My mama said, no, you take this deodorant and take a chain and put it around your neck. When I was 7, put this around your neck. It's interesting. So I know when she said, well, there's something wrong with the coat. So she said, well, that's Mullins. She went up, came up to Atlanta. My brother said, oh, he's advanced vegetarian. He went out and bought her. He broke down and bought her a coat. And she drank it. She said, no, something is wrong with this. Now, it's interesting. One of the brothers made the observation. He said, well, in that case, that's why they're going to come out with the vanilla Coke. And then the vanilla Coke, they came out with the vanilla Coke, and which was interesting. They say, because if it's got another taste in it, you wouldn't be able to tell. You just think whatever the taste they give you, that's the way it's supposed to taste. And boom, they had at the end of August, they had an actual Consumer Report thing on TV, and they said vanilla Coke was number one with black teens, black teenagers. You see, so apparently now this is not far-fetched, because remember they had the same thing happen in Europe in '99. In 1999, they had a bunch of people got sick off of Coca-cola, but it was bound for Africa. But somehow the shipment got fucked up and they ended up in Switzerland or somewhere. You see. So this is so this is the attack. Now other researchers is finally they're coming out with the research to say that basically it is the fluoride that hardens the pineal gland. Hardens the pineal gland. So remember Dick Gregory was saying, on one of the tapes said that they got a number to call. Like the fluoride said, if you take it, it says, if you take it, call this number. Not go get a doctor. Call this number, because whatever you swallow, ain't no doctor can help you. You need to call this number if you swallow the fluoride. So they came out recently about the fluoride actually calcifying the pineal gland. But the thing about it is Phil Valentine did a lecture down in Atlanta on July the 20th, and he had an entire list of all the stuff that fluoride is in. Just about 90% of the foods. You see. Now, and it's interesting because around the same time that the Coke came out, all of a sudden we go up in the shopping center and they got fluoride water all over the place. You see. The other concept here dealing with this is summer of 2001, they announced on CBS News that they were going to have to stop, they were going to have to come in, they were going to have to cut off all the lights on the big skyscrapers in those major cities. So they say after a certain time around 12 o'clock, they were going to have to cut them off. Now notice they started doing it in Atlanta back in '96. After a certain time, they have to cut it off, and then they say, well, what it is what little bit of melanin we produce is not being produced because of the bright lights in the actual city. The body doesn't know to go to sleep, and the melatonin production is not being produced because they got all these black lights, all these bright lights. You see what I'm saying? They talked about this last summer. Then all of a sudden the reports came out about how basically if there's any light in the room, you're going to have problems producing the amount of melatonin in sleep, as well as electromagnetic force fields or whatever, ELF waves. Right. That all this is all of this particular stuff that produces the flow of melatonin or melanin is cut short based on TV, radio, and all kinds of things you have in your room. You see what I'm saying? The best thing to do if you got all that in the room is to unplug it. You see, it's to unplug it because all of a sudden now, all the new stereo, which you want to get into, they got this thing called standby, which has got a big red light that comes on. You see what I'm saying? After you cut it off, now unless you unplug it, it's still on. You see, well, we already knew that about the TV. So they were saying these ELF waves is also hindering the production of melatonin, because the other war is the war against sleep. to make sure that you don't go to sleep. The war against sleep. That's the other war. They have to have a certain group of indigenous people. Number one, the best war against sleep is called work. You can't really truly get a good night's sleep because you got to work. You know what I'm saying? And you know how it is even when you're working. If you got to get up early, you still got to stare at that clock a certain amount of times. And you go back and forth to sleep. The key here is not to get to the deep sleep realm. That's the key. There's two kinds of sleeps. There's regular sleep, and then there is deep sleep. And the deep sleep realm. I'll get a little controversial in a few minutes and stuff to tell y'all how to jack in. You can do it or you whatever. But so far we've had such success with this thing. And I'll give you the medical aspect about that because Dr. Andau also said something that I understood. See, medicine is not necessarily non-African. See, sometimes we go to the extremes. Medicine is not non-African. The pharmaceutical industry is saying only medicine. That's the difference. So the medicine is the ongoing research. It's basically alchemy. You see what I'm saying? And that's not non-African. You see, the what you call it is saying only medicine, the pharmaceutical companies. You see what I'm saying? It's saying only medicine, and that's what makes imbalance. But we had medicine. Otherwise, we got alchemical texts that deal with this particular, that's the origin of where all this stuff comes from. So pharmaceutical is not necessarily bad. Only pharmaceutical is bad. You see, so we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and I even warned against that also. You see what I'm saying? So you have two different things, because on earth, I don't give a damn, how can something actually be artificial? The earth has to produce it. Even that plastic is produced by the earth. You see what I'm saying? Now, that's a controversial thing for some people. We'll get back into that in the question and answer. I'm going to go on. The key here is the deep sleep realm. And that's the realm that you need to get to. It's deep sleep realm. Now just remember that, because I'm going to have to go back, but I need to get into this particular aspect of this conspiracy of music to let you understand what's going on here. We know that music came out of the Hermetic schools or the Tahuti schools, or the wisdom of Tahuti, or the priesthood of Tahuti, or basically what they call the Hermetic schools in Hemmitt, came up through so-called Greece and Rome and whatever, but the majority of the spheres and everything that we have based on music now was given to the Europeans by the Moors. By the Moors. We also know that that majority of, we know that just about all of that, now because it's interesting because the Europeans now go say, oh, we find these ancient texts floating around in Europe. We don't know where their origins come from. So they got some stuff called the Lesser Key of Solomon. These ancient texts come out of the mystery school, the Greater Key of Solomon, and they got these people translate all this stuff. But then they're going to say, well, the origins is obscure. How they got in Europe, we don't know. We know damn well how they got in Europe. The Moors took them there. So the whole, so a part of the whole music aspect, because remember now that word is because like the guy Occult, what's his name? The whole music aspect, the way they get it from the Moors, we understand. And anytime you hear that word Sufi, you know, that's woolly-haired one is also a name, translation, Sufi, woolly-haired ones. In your boy's book, what's the guys, The People of the Secret? Tell you his name in a few minutes. The People of the Secret is the name of the book. I get something Wilson, Wilson, I'll tell you in a few minutes. Anyway, going back when it comes to this particular science of the actual spheres that the European gets, in the Hermetic schools, they understand that in so many words, if you look at the history of black people, let's say from 1865, let's just start, that's a good way to start, from 1865 on up. If you look at the history of black people, whatever technological advances that we gave the white man and he stole, which is the majority of the stuff, also on the periphery or on the other dimension of that, the music that was produced by the Africans, mainly in the diaspora, but especially in America, has been is just as advanced as any technological feat that the white man either stole or even put forth on the planet during the same time. When you think about it, when we talk about just the complexity of the actual music, in so many words for the people, because a lot of people, we think this, the technology is the only thing synonymous to genius. You see what I'm saying? But when you look at, and you break this thing down pound for pound, the music realm that was produced, from the Negro spirituals from slavery, which remember now was put together, the Negro spirituals was actually put together by the fifth Jubilee Choir, you know, people put this stuff, they brought out this particular stuff that was actually underground music to the rest of the world. And then later on, the blues was put to that and made gospel. You know, you hear all these Christians, I don't have a blues record in my house, and don't even know that gospel was started from the blues.
That's right.
You know, what's my man name that lost all his money in the Depression? Blues singer, went and fused that thing in, which is basically the archetype and the blueprint of gospel music. In so many words, dealing with that, dealing with the jazz, dealing with this thing on into even the funk, which is a very advanced level. Very advanced level is the funk. Anything that makes you damn dance that well is very advanced. You see what I'm saying? Bootsy Collins should be right up there with Tahuti, Jesus, or whoever the hell. You put Marcus Garvey, you better put George Clinton and Bootsy Collins and the rest of them. James Brown is not a genius. Are you out of your mind? Now, try to understand the concept here. They understood by studying the muse and studying creative physics that this is comparable to any advanced technology on the planet given by us to the world and made gains by even Europeans or anybody else on the planet. The music, the only thing that was comparable to it on the planet Earth on that level was the music, and the music in the 20th century is fundamentally black. Hands down.
That's right.
Even fucking country.
That's right.
Hands down. There's no argument on that. You don't even get a white person argument on that. So music, but the music was technologically advanced. And then they figured it out. They said, wait a minute, hold on. We have held these people down where they cannot have the same access to the technology in the same way we do, because we purposely oppress these people. But these people, for every technological gain, they have produced the music that is comparable to it. And in so many words, that was technological itself, because that music outlasts some of the technology that becomes outmoded. You see what I'm saying? You can always go and get some, I like to call it classical funk, classical so-called rock and roll. When I say rock and roll, it's different because, you know, there was rock and roll, you see what I'm saying, which is nothing but R&B, rhythm and blues, which is rock and roll. They said, well, that's rock and roll, we're going to try to take it from black people. Then by what, 1970, 71, they just say rock. You see, and then your children grow up thinking the rock is fundamentally white. You see what I'm saying? And we're talking about rock from 1971 on up is nothing but the started Jimi Hendrix. Bottom line. Bottom line. The model for that was not done before Jimi Hendrix.
That's right.
You see. Now, dealing with this, because I'm going to go right into the conspiracy now. Let's hold on 1 minute. They can look and they can see the technological advances in the music. That means if you oppress a people, that not only you don't give them the aspect, or you don't give them the access to the actual technology. You give them access every day, that's called a job. But you got to go home and leave whatever you done created for them. And, you know. So, but if you don't give them the access to the technology on the planet, they have produced the technology that's much more advanced. All the way even down to healing. You see, now, stick with me on this. So we got two worlds going on. We have a physical world based on physical science. Now remember now, it was based on secret societies in the 17 and 1800s. Said, look, we have learned what is called the Hermetic laws that they got from the Moors of Spain and the 16 universities and the whole 9 yards, including the distillation of alcohol it's an alchemical practice that came out of Kemet, not just beer. The distillation of alcohol is very alchemical and is very fundamental to melanin. You just got to remix it. I'll go into that in a few minutes. We'll go into that in the tutorial or whatever. Now listen to me. Very key, because we have it in the text. You see what I'm saying? So I don't have to come and say some things. We always research and put on a nigga ass on the scholarship level. You see, you just have to deal with it. Now, dealing with this thing, they understood that when you fuse this particular, the Hermetic schools, they decided one thing in the Hermetic schools, or what they call after they ousted the Moors. We understood that in Kemet that you had whatever you call technology on the physical science, it was always comparable with that on the spiritual sciences. And they were never separated.
There you go.
The European made sure they separated both, and they said, we're going to make sure that when we talk about academia, or on the collegiate level, which we sanction, it always has to be on the physical science. Even when you start talking about philosophy, or when you start talking about even religion, what do they call that? They call that, everything is based on the way they categorize things. So you have your religious aspect.
It's called sacred.
No, but when they categorize things.
Theology.
That's theology. And theology, that's theology. That is never supposed to mix with technology. You see, so they always categorize things. Even if you go into much more advanced aspects of philosophy, on into the metaphysical and the spiritual aspect, you see, you never are supposed to, it's never supposed to coincide and bond together. But yet Princeton, yeah, you go to these schools, but yet in their libraries, like I say, State University in New York, SUNY, Princeton, that's all they do. It's just based on the discipline that they give you. It's always got to be separated. You see, so what happened is you got black people that go to these particular schools and they actually think, well, that's all right, but then again, on the other hand, hard-nosed science is much more valid. You understand what I'm saying? And the first thing the doctor does, the white boy, you ever seen a doctor when he gives up and the person gets well anyway? The first thing they do is, well, you know, miracles do happen. I thought you didn't believe in miracles. Now since you failed. Now going back. So they make sure that they don't combine the two. All right. So we do know that the spiritual discipline, when we talk about music, is vital when it comes to technology. Because what is in the Kabbalion, the three initiates? What is the first law of the universe? This is the Hermetic science, the book, the Kabbalion of the three initiates. What is the first law of the universe? Vibration. Ask any woman about that. Or any woman know this. You can go get me a tickle me Elmo that move like this. She can put that between her legs. You see what I'm saying? And lock your ass out the door. That's science. What is the first law of the universe? Vibration. Any woman, you got a clitoris, you know that. You know that. You should take a damn little Snoopy dog and move like this. So, you need to take your ass in the other room. You done pissed me off. Grab the Snoopy, bloop. That's it. First law of the universe in Hermetic science, which is the Hermetic, which is the Tahuti, which is the science of melanin, the science of alchemy, is what? Vibration. It's vibration. You see. Now, dealing with this science, they understood, to make a long story short, that it was 3 times more advanced than any technological thing that they had. Remember now, in the white boy's technology, he will learn something that he gets from the ancient model, which is African, or which is ancient indigenous black folks. And he would rather hold on to something, he'll hold on to it 100 years until he figures out a way to produce something that he created, to do it in his method, than to give you the method 100 years ago. So half of the science that they got It's stuff that they had to take the damn near 130, 40 years just to create it in their method to always fool you. Say them white people showing up and coming up with some new stuff every day. But they have already had the rudimentary model to this particular aspect 100 years ago. You see, but they would rather hold on to it until the process of their way of presenting it. And until they do that, they go, oh, it doesn't exist. That's hocus pocus. That, you know, nah, that's crazy. That's a conspiracy. Now, dealing with this, the conspiracy starts, we know, in the jazz era. But do you know that there's even conspiracies that even, you know around Sam Cooke? Isn't it funny how these major icons always end up dying? There's even conspiracies, and we always accept conspiracies. You see what I'm saying? Because we live by that. White people say, nah, racism doesn't exist. And we know different. So any fool, never take what the cracker says face value. Do you know there's even conspiracies? There's some stuff in New York you all know of, by the name of Burt Lockett. They call it Hat Shack Suit. I used to speak with her a lot. She even went to Columbia University, I think, and did a whole lecture on music. And there's also conspiratorial views that even down to your boy Nat King Cole ended up getting taken out. But that ain't nothing. They can give you what they want in the damn hospital. Because in order for damn Frank Sinatra to be the reigning king of that type of genre, they had to take Nat King Cole out, which was the real talent.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? They looked at people like Sam Cooke. They understood it's called psychosexual. They understand that there's a bond between the psychosexual energy and the archetype of the virile black man based on the Osirian energy, that they had to start taking these people out. So mysteriously, Sam Cooke. Your boy, if you go and really study Elvis, we know that Elvis got his stuff from black people, but I'm talking about his style. There's no difference between his style and what Jackie Wilson did in the 1950s. It's almost identical. Then all of a sudden, boom, he's phased out and never don't let, because a person gets sick, a person gets strokes and all that, that can be induced or produced. That's nothing. It's always a pattern. It's always a pattern. You see, now Jimi Hendrix, Aleister Crowley, the occultist, got some Greek texts that came out of Hemmitt. It came out of the Library of Alexandria, translated into Greek. It's a play called The Rites of Lucius. It's called The Rites of Lucius. He got this papyrus, this Egyptian play, because they say it's Greek, but all those characters is Isis, Osiris, you see Osar, Tahuti, Anubis, all those people are in the actual play. You know, and I remember, because the playbook used to cost like $80 or $90 just to get the playbook, The Rites of Lucius. You can probably still get it, or you might can go on the internet and download it. Now this is very interesting. He got this Rites of Lucius play, translated it, and took the shit on the road in the early 20th century, early 1900s, on college campuses. And he was on college campuses, and they would just go in and see the play. And when they would go, and when they would come in and see the play, based on the energy and the characters in the play, they would go into altered states of consciousness. So as a result of them going into altered states of consciousness, the government, the British government came in and banned the play. Now, 70 years later, 60 years, 70 years later, 60 years, 70 years later, Jimi Hendrix is in England playing to these white folks. Next thing they know, there's words going around Europe that his music is putting people in altered states of consciousness. Then in 1993, they put out a compilation, MCA put out a compilation of all his music. And in the pamphlet, they tell you that the woman said, the white woman that killed him, These are her words. He decided he was going back to America. He had an experimental music that he was going to fuse in with the blues or whatever the deal is. He had already had agreement with the Isley brothers, his cousins, that they was going to come in, which later on became the agreement after his death kept on. That's why the Isley brothers to this day is a group that was ahead of their time. And they, I mean, once the 3 plus 3 got together in 73, when they had to wait till the other 3 brothers graduated from college. And when they put this thing together, the other ones came out in the 50s. The other 3, when they put it together, they had already had a blueprint that they was going to fuse in the experimental rock and roll of Jimi Hendrix into the blues or the so-called R&B from the 50s and the 60s on up. And that's where you get the collaboration of the Isley brothers. It was already a plan that was collaborated between them and Jimi Hendrix. So he said he was going back home. He was through. He was going back home, and he was through with the European thing, and he was going back home. And the woman said he had a headache that night, and he said, "No, I'm just going to go to bed." And in the compilation CD of 1993, the woman says, "I convinced him to take the sleeping pills." Then he took the sleeping pills, and she said, "I got up that morning and I went into the room and I realized that he had thrown up, but he was still alive, and I went on back to bed." I'm like, come on, man, they took this guy right on out of here. You see, they took him right on out. Now, going on, you got your it's called psychosexual energy. If they knew that the new music is coming, and the new religion is coming, and it's going to be a music, then Osiris is going to come through a person with a microphone in his hand. You see, then all of a sudden, Teddy Pendergrass. No, we don't give a damn about the sexual orientation. That don't have nothing to do with it. The image and the icon, when it comes to the masses of people, is the only thing that counts. So the next thing you know, Teddy Pendergrass gets taken out. You see what I'm saying? To this day, we still trying to figure out Marvin Gaye's death. You know, this thing here, I just don't buy it. Because I also know that he also said he had held off the tantric thing. He studied sexual tantra, and he held it off about 4 years. Before he said, and then about putting this stuff, infusing this stuff into his music. And then he said, fuck it, I'm going to come out with it. And he started off with sexual healing. And the next thing you know, he said, well, I'm coming with even more stuff by my next album. And he never, they put out some stuff after he died, but Sexual Healing was basically his last major album. You see what I'm saying? So my point is, now what I'm saying here is this here. They have to kill the archetype. That is why the archetypes that came in the 1980s on up has been androgynous figures. They had to get rid of that Osirian, virile black man. Barry White was able to escape. I guess they figure, well, you know, he's 300 pounds. But Isaac Hayes was lucky. Isaac Hayes was lucky. They just bankrupted him in the mid-70s. You know, they can destroy your character. You know, just for a person becoming bankrupt, you know, the way the mind is, we say, oh man, you know, I don't want to hear that nigga music. He couldn't even hold on to his money. And that's the way we think. It's always the science. Then the androgynous figures come in like Prince, Michael Jackson, and even Luther. You see what I'm saying? Luther is no Teddy Pendergrass. His music is, but we're talking about an archetypal energy, a certain type, a certain height. You see what I'm saying? A certain stature. And why is it that all these people keep biting the dust? Now, stick with me, because this is what's going on. From the 1986, from this conference, and understanding that the Kundalini energy was rising, which has also to do with vibrations. And the monitor is twixt the woman's legs, the clitoris. All this stuff here coincides. That's the key, you know. Now, they knew since 1986, they said we're going to have to stop this music. First of all, and I talked about this in other lectures, they found out in the 1970s after putting pure scunion on black people's behind every damn day, whipping black people every day. They said, man, we put all kind of shit on these people. We put all kind of things on these people. And these people end up they just don't come down sick like we think. You know, they just, you know, something is wrong. What they found out, that based on LPs, an album, and I talked about this before, an album is vinyl. Anything that you get vinyl, any kind of rubber, any type of vinyl, any type of plastic, when it is first made, it is clear. Anytime you get it to a darker hue, you have to cook it down to its most carbonated form. And what is melanin? Carbon. 6 protons, 6 electrons, 6 neutrons. Carbon. So you have to cook it down to the most carbon form. That's what the black tires on your car. Then you understand why black people go crazy over cars. You know what I'm saying? Shit, I had a damn uncle, 1968. He came home and my grandfather said, hey, let me drive your car. And that nigga like lost his mind. You know, we savages on that level. Now, anyway, you have to cook it down to the most black aspect of the carbonated aspect. And so an album, number one, it was round. Look in the wings of the staff of Tahuti, and you will see what? You'll see 2 wings of what? A black dot. An LP or 45 was round. That is a form of a black dot. Now stick with me on this. On an LP, you have grooves, which means you have an actual recording. That means that when they originally recorded it, whatever sounds came, the needle or whatever it was that recorded it, the device actually made a recording. It's an actual recording dug into black vinyl, okay? Which is vibration, which is pure carbon. In a round disc. First of all, that made the shit round. They was like, oh shoot. Then, most needles, the cheap needles, were either sapphire, which is a stone, or the gemstone, or diamonds. What is diamond? Crystallized carbon. So they understood that the LP with this turntable was crystallized carbon on music coming from black people in a carbon round disc that coincided with the melanin, and black people was healing their damn self on the weekend through the party.
All right, that's right.
Hello. Then they said we have to go hologram. So by 1990, they came out with, it was actually Zenith that invented CD technology. And they had a lot of problems in the early 80s. The supply, the demand was bigger than the supply. They finally got it online by 88. By 88, they could see the production in the store, and they brought out the compact disc. Now we liked it because the simple fact it's convenient. That's the first thing. Number two, we said it sounds so clear. But what we didn't realize was, only thing they did was they EQ'd a sound. If you had an equalizer, your LP is going to give you the same EQ boost. So the only thing they did was it was louder than the LP, but the only thing you needed was the equalizer. Now stick with me because it goes right into the conspiracy. So they gave the CD. A CD is not a recording. It is a hologram coming from something else and put into there. And it's done with a laser. So it's not an actual recording. It's a hologram. Now, this is the key. I've been studying this occult for about 14 years now, which means that which is hidden. So my job was to go in and get as much material and bibliography I could find in the occult realm. That's where I come to the table with is the actual research that I had to do over the past 10 years. The good part about me is everything I ever read, I remember. You know why? Because, you know why I have a photographic memory? Because I was one of the students that couldn't get the academic thing together in high school. And that makes all the difference in the world and where your genius comes from. So I was one of the people, I was an artist. And I was a good artist. I was one of the best artists in the state of South Carolina. It's just like a person that plays basketball. That's all you do. You walk around with the basketball in your hand. I was an artist, and the only thing I did from damn second grade to graduate high school is true. And everybody say, oh, he's an artist, that's what he's going to do. So I was into the arts. You see what I'm saying? So my point is, the academic thing, I didn't get it together for the simple fact I didn't have to. I was such a genius talent on the art thing, they was like, oh man, go ahead, we gonna, this social promote your ass. And when I got to college, they said, get this nigga A's and B's anyway. I made the dean's list 3 semesters in a row, all because my artwork was phenomenal. Now, it wasn't until the late 20s that I started coming to the academic side, but then again, on the other hand, I could see things different than what I could have seen, or what I would have seen if I would have been applied myself into the left-brain European shutdown model. Okay, now, dealing with this particular information, I noticed by default, a couple of months ago, I said, damn, I've researched literally hundreds and hundreds of occult books, and I never hear these white people talk about the ear. Talk about the ear. In all these books. And I said, damn, that's just like all the other occult books. Anything that deals with black people, like the pineal gland, most of the occult books don't have it in there. They might mention it on one page. You see, you got earlier people that was obscure, like Hilton Hotima, but he was never really a published author. Most of that stuff from health research is hell. Half the manuals is still done on the typewriter. So my point here is, I said, damn, here's the conspiracy again. I said, now I've been doing this thing, I've been studying this for 10 years, and I've never seen anything on the ear. In all these occult books, they break down all, I said, oh, there it is again. Because I remember what Richard King said. You see, basically by doing the research, when they omit stuff, that's because it's about you. I said, well, in that case, shit, let me go to Richard King. I go to the African Arts of Biological Psychiatry. You see, I done had it over 10 years at this time. I go and put the book right there on page 40 or 30 with the melanin nucleus, inner ear nucleus, the doorway to the temple. I'm like, but wait a minute, hold on. If the inner ear is the doorway to the temple, and I don't see no occult books, there's only one thing that got me. I remember back in 1993 reading the Book of Thoth by Aleister Crowley, which is the book on the tarot. The Book of Thoth is he had this angel called Awas, which was a former Horus that came and visited him, and they gave him all this particular information. The Book of Thoth was important because a lot of the stuff that the tarot, which came out of Spain, which the Moors brought up from Hemmitt, out of the Egyptian mystery system, the tarot, your playing cards comes from the tarot. You see what I'm saying? So there was some things that was missing. He put them back in this particular book. Real technical, but in the book, in his chapter on the fool is the tarot. The first, you got what? How many? 42 arcane or 32? How many major arcane? Anybody with the tarot?
22.
22. The fool is the first card. It's the only card that, not only is it the first card, it's the only card that can be used throughout the entire deck. Why? Because as long as you remain innocent, that's the only way you can ever really learn. You got to stay humble. You see what I'm saying? That's the only way you can ever really learn. You see what I'm saying? Now, in the part about Harpocrates, which is supposed to be the fool, the Egyptian god Harpocrates is a little god with a thumb in his mouth, sitting on a lotus, which is Horus the baby. The baby Horus, you ever hear the baby Jesus?
Yeah.
The baby Jesus. Well, that's Horus, a Heru, with the thumb in his mouth called Harpocrates. You even get the word hypocrite, the Hippocratic oath, all that comes from Harpocrates. You ever hear the god Cupid? You know the god Cupid is the baby Horus, called Eros in one thing, Cupid, Eros in Greece, Cupid in Rome. That's the baby Horus, or the baby Jesus. Now, Harpocrates is known as the fool in the tarot deck. Crowley has something that's so profound in the book under the fool, and it says, because it was one of the only explanations I got on a level that started talking about on a level. Y'all want to wait till he put that in. This is very important. This is literally the crux of the actual lecture, which bring me into my odyssey that I had to go on in the spring of the year. Because we're going to bring this thing down to realism right now in a few seconds. So I want to just get this. You on? Okay. Harpocrates is the fool in this room. In Crowley's book, right under the fool, the book of Thoth, he says, gives one of the greatest explanations for the Heru or the Horus lock. He said the Horus lock is not necessarily dealing with the hair itself, but it is suggesting that the Horus lock, you know what that is? You ever see the little Jews with the little, for the people don't know, they got a little lock of hair. Well, they are copying that, well, the isn't really, the fake Jews are copying that from the ancient Egyptian practice of the child with the Horus lock, or the Heru's lock. He says in the book that the Heru's lock is not necessarily based on hair, although we know that that's the whole melanin thing too. He said, but it suggests something on the inside of the ear. First thing I said, well, there go your pineal gland, because that's where it's going to end up. And he calls it the Bararandra chakra. You see, now deal with this, he says. He's dealing with the child Heru in the book. He said that the Horus lock, or the Heru's lock, is not necessarily dealing with the hair itself, but it suggests that the Heru's lock is dealing with something on the inside of the ear called the Bararandra chakra. And he goes in and says that this particular chakra in the ear that the Heru's lock is suggesting. This Bararandra chakra is the highest level of Akasha spirit. Okay. Now you got to go back and see what the word Akasha. If you go, the word Akasha, Akash means black. You get the Akashic records, you get the word Akash, and then you used to also get your girl in the movie, Queen of the Damned, was called what? Akasha. And what happens? Akasha gets killed. Okay? And that whole thing was a big ritual. We talked about this, I think, the last time. It was a big ritual with your girl. She was 22. The goddess Maya is the number 22. You know, that's the balance of the scale. You see, Akasha. Akasha became the first vampire when a god named what? Amel. A-M-E-L, which is a real entity that, what's her name got when she wrote the book, when she read the book, The Lost Cities of Africa. Lost Cities of Africa is also in a book called Sumerian Mythology. Amel, it said, now listen, it says that Amel